Ever since, there's been controversy about the nature of Jessup's death. Some believe that he was murdered for what he knew about the Philadelphia experiment. Others say he took his own life because of a recent divorce and the hostile reception his books received. Even to his own daughter, it's still a mystery. She believes that he had much to live for, but admits in a candid moment that the opposite may also have been true.
His wife, Marjorie, called to tell me that he had died, and my reaction at the time was to say, how did he do it? So I must have been thinking of him as depressed at that time. It's funny, until you asked that, I hadn't thought of that for a long time. But she said he was dead, and I said, how did he do it? So...
Whatever the case may be, Morris Jessup's death does add mystery as well as credibility to the Philadelphia experiment.
It's a very sad story, but that act on his part helped to propel and authenticate rumors that there was something to this.
After Jessup's death, a reprint of his book with all its strange commentary becomes infamous. It is widely rumored to contain comments by 3 space aliens. The public finds out about this so-called Varro edition, but no one can get a copy. Rumor has it that the Navy keeps the book under wraps. Likewise, everyone has heard of Carlos Miguel Allende, but no one can find him.
People everywhere were looking for Carlos Miguel Allende, but he kept moving. Towns would change, postmarks would change, return addresses would change. He always kept on the move. I thought there was a general consensus that he'd never be found, that he was too much of a mystery man, possibly in fear of his life because of what he had seen.
But what does this mystery man really know, and what does the Navy have to hide? When we return, the accidental eyewitness to the experiment exposed. And the crew of the USS Eldridge speaks out on the supposed happenings in Philly.
I was on it almost every day and went on every trip that it ever took, and it never went to Philadelphia.
Hide. When we return, the accidental eyewitness to the experiment exposed. And the crew of the USS Eldridge speaks out on the supposed happenings in Philly.
I was on it almost every day and went on every trip that it ever took, and it never went to Philadelphia.
The Navy admits that the term rainbow was used during the Second World War, but it was a code name for the 3 Axis powers, Italy, Germany, and Japan. History's Mysteries will continue here on the History Channel.
Extraterrestrials have taken up permanent residence in America, in pop culture, if not yet in person.
UFOs, the Roswell, UFOs from the 50s, X-Files, aliens, more aliens, Men in Black, Loch Ness Monster, toys, T-shirts, models, books, games. This is all part of the paranormal history of the past 40 years, all in my dungeon. Welcome to my world.
Like many other young UFO researchers in the 1960s, Robert Gorman is fascinated by the mystery man of the Philadelphia experiment, Carlos Miguel Allende. But unlike other would-be Allende hunters, Gorman lives in New Kensington, Pennsylvania, the same place from which Allende posts many of his letters.
So I says, if anybody should be in a position to find Allende, I live in the same town, I don't have that much to travel, I should be able to give it quite a shot. And in the late 60s, I was giving it quite a shot.
Gorman and others have little to go on. The only hard piece of information on Allende is his Seaman's ID number, which he diligently includes on early letters. Men come forward who claim to be Carlos Miguel Allende, but they are imposters who cannot produce the seamanship papers. Throughout the 60s, his underground celebrity grows.
It was believed that the Navy had top secret interest in a book that was mailed to them anonymously by legendary beings. So in an article for Saga magazine in late 67 and in 2 paperback novels after that in 68, that really became the birth of the Allende-Jessup mystery in the minds of the average John Doe on the street.
A sizable cottage industry grows up around Carlos Allende. Everyone seems to be cashing in, except Allende himself, who also goes by the name Carl Allen.
Carl Allen eventually got pretty upset and pretty bitter about the fact that everybody was making money off the Philadelphia Experiment. All these book publishers were publishing and selling books. Everybody was publishing his letters that he had written to Morris Jessup in their books. Everybody seemed to be making money off this story, but the person that so-called invented it, Carl Allen.
So it was in 1969, in the summer of 69, that Carl M. Allen, a copy of the Verrill edition in his hand, walked into the headquarters of the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization and confessed the entire thing was a hoax. As he said it, the wildest pack of lies I'd ever wrote.
His confession is the second major blow to the UFO movement within a year. Earlier in 1969, the Air Force officially closes the books on its investigations into the paranormal. UFOs, they say, do not exist. They close ranks with the Navy, which has abandoned its unofficial quest for strange flying objects. The study of UFOs not only loses its legitimacy with the government, but also its poster child, the alleged space alien, Carlos Allende. But it is by no means the end of the legend of the Philadelphia experiment. In 1975, The Bermuda Triangle by Charles Berlitz becomes a publishing sensation. Among the reports of disappearing ships and planes, there is the story of the invisible ship experiment of World War II. Four years later, Berlitz follows up the success of Triangle with Philadelphia experiment, Project Invisibility. He and co-author William Moore rehash the familiar accounts of Carlos Miguel Allende. Conveniently, Allende recants his earlier confession and is once again spreading the gospel of the invisibility experiment. To William Moore, Allende reveals for the first time the identity of the test ship, DE-173, the USS Eldridge. The authors talk to members of the Eldridge's crew, but the interviews do nothing to corroborate the Philadelphia experiment.
I was on it almost every day and went on every trip that it ever took, and it never went to Philadelphia.
If there was any scuttlebutt, I would have heard it. And there was no scuttlebutt about top secret anythings on our ship.
The authors instead theorize that the experiment took place with a special hand-picked crew before she was officially commissioned. This explanation, too, is disputed by crew members who say they were with the Eldridge from construction to combat.
Some of our members of the crew were over in Newark, Port Newark, at the Federal Shipbuilding, and they were there while the ship was put together to learn all the insides and outsides, and they sailed on the Eldridge.
While crew members ridicule the whole idea of the Philadelphia experiment,